Hey, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Carl.
How you doing?
Good.
Always good.
Did you guys survive the flood?
We did pretty well up here in New Hampshire.
Yeah?
Yeah, not too bad at all. It looked like it was going to be worse than it was.
The movie that I decided to watch because we couldn't go outside, sit on the deck, it was appropriate. A river runs through it.
Too soon.
Well
Too
played.
soon.
Too soon?
Well played.
Okay.
It's very much too soon. It's just the other day.
Hey, welcome back to Security This Week. I'm Carl Franklin. These are my friends, Dwayne.
Hello.
And Patrick.
Hey, how you doing?
From a top secret bunker somewhere in New Hampshire that is apparently a little wetter today than it was 2 days ago.
Sub pump's working.
We just call it resupply.
Right. Now it's an underwater bunker, which is good.
Yeah.
Harder to get to.
So this was a little bit of a crazy week for many reasons, but in the world of InfoSec, information security, enterprise security, some really high-profile things happened this week. I've been looking over the list, and I'm trying hard to come up with a theme or a title for this show. Maybe we'll just see what evolves.
Doom and gloom.
Wow. Every show can't be doom and gloom. I'm just putting that out there.
Hey, as the Men in Black said, there's always a Carillion plague or a battle cruiser about to destroy the Earth.
Yeah, it's the same thing here. It's the same thing.
Well, the one that hit me the hardest was Microsoft Azure Cloud vulnerability is the, quote, worst you can imagine.
Yeah.
And I saw that and I was like, well, I have lots of stuff up in Microsoft Azure. Maybe I should be concerned about it. And then it turns out it was for a service that I don't use. But tell us about this one.
So this one's interesting. So I don't know how many of you there listeners are used to the Cosmos DB. Anybody? So yeah. So let's break that down a little bit. So there's massive databases all over the place. Databases hold data. Some databases are structured databases. Others are sort of a hodgepodge, no SQL database. None of that matters.
I'm glad we're not playing a drinking game where we have to drink every time he says database.
Yes, I know, really.
And I'm going to say it just
or words like acid. Like, come on, my mother listens to this show. She's like, acid database? What the hell is that? It was written by hippies, apparently.
Darn hippies. So what's interesting about this particular breach, we won't call it a hack because there's a very specific reason why. We'll get into that in a second. But this breach of sorts was that this Cosmos DB is a massive sort of sump of area where you can put data up in the cloud, up in Azure. And there are
massive what?
Sump area.
Just like a big box you can throw stuff in.
Exactly.
The junk drawer.
Exactly.
Junk drawer of the internet.
Right.
Actually, that's your title. That's your title for this episode.
Junk drawer of the internet.
Oh, that pretty much sold itself right there. Okay.
So what's interesting is back in 2019, so lots of customers, Fortune 500, using this database to store stuff and things that's important to them. And back in
it's both stuff and things.
More stuff
just
than
one or the
things.
other.
But yes, both.
Yeah.
Back in 2019, Microsoft enabled an ability to leverage what's called Jupyter Notebooks.
Right.
Which is just to distill that down, it's really just think like a programming light platform / notebook reporting system where you can write queries and code and pull.
It's the
really
new
cool.
Excel.
They're
there
really
you go.
cool. They're really cool. I mean, if you jump into the Q# stuff, almost everything is taught via Jupyter Notebooks, and they do make it very easy for you to do interactive stuff.
All right, so nobody knows what the hell you're talking
Q#.
about.
You're just making things up now.
Well, you just that's crazy talk, Patrick.
So Microsoft has these things they want you to learn about,
right?
And so they create exercises, and some of them are called kata.
I don't like to exercise. Go ahead.
We know.
I don't like kata.
Some of them, and so basically, it's a set of exercises you can go through to learn something.
Right.
It's like your workbook. And imagine that you could read a paragraph, watch a video, run some code all in one document, all in one page. So it's kind of like a web page, but it's more in an interactive environment.
Yeah, and it's more targeted towards a particular context.
Hugely popular in science, and I think that's where they mostly popularized from.
Okay.
So
the issue is
this particular enabling to allow Jupyter Notebooks happened to enable you to then pull down the primary keys for any database that was in Cosmos DB.
Oh no.
Oh, that's super handy.
It is super handy if you need primary
keys. In other words,
for
you could just access other people's data.
Exactly.
That's terrible.
So it's an interesting, like I said, I won't call it a hack because the security researcher at Wiz who discovered it was not looking to breach this and steal things. It was reported, and within 48 hours, a lot of that was shut down. The residual problem is those primary keys, even though the researcher at Wiz has them all and could see them all, Microsoft does not. So they've asked all their customers to go change those keys, because with those keys, you could access their data in perpetuity, which is interesting.
That's a long time.
That is a long time, at least past next week.
So to make a short story longer, we discovered this vulnerability. It was patched. It's not going to affect your life, but if you had a database using Azure Cosmos DB, somebody may have been able to read your data.
So let's talk about that for a second. So that means that until it was disclosed, it was a 0 day.
Yes.
It was a vulnerability that existed that was unreported. And while I didn't know about it, and I don't think Dwayne knew about it, and Carl didn't know about it, it doesn't mean that some government or some hacking consortium didn't know about it and didn't exploit it and is now very sad.
So that's an interesting point you bring up there, Patrick, because there are certain legal things you need to do when notifying your customers if data has been leaked in a particular way. And according to Microsoft, they've searched through all the logs of everything that's ever been done on Cosmos DB for every one of their customers forever. And they've never seen a signature of an attack like this before.
Perfect. Which means it existed as a 0 day, but it was an undiscovered 0 day. And luckily, the first person to discover it, as far as we can tell, was an ethical reporting individual instead of a hacky bad individual.
Now the odds against that sound like they're high.
I mean, there's a trillion 0 days in existence right now. I can say that with assurance, because it's basically every vulnerability in every piece of software everywhere. The question is, if someone can find it and wants to be bad, then they can exploit it until it becomes reported, and then it's no longer a 0 day.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So remember, I think it was last week we talked about the company Cisco, CISCO.
Yes.
And may have been the week before, I can't remember, but recently. And Cisco makes these black boxes called routers that pretty much run the internet and all sorts of other network gear. But anytime you have an internet service provider like Verizon or Atlantic Broadband or Comcast or any of these big guys, they have racks and racks and racks of Cisco boxes. Suffice it to say. And companies too, that have their own private networks are probably running Cisco routers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So something happened with a critical authentication bypass bug. What happened?
Yeah, and you present it very well, Carl, because you go out there and say, hey, Cisco, if you were to look at the infrastructure that manages the internet at large, my guess is a major percentage of it is Cisco, right? So now you see these headlines where you're like, oh my gosh, there's an authentication bypass on Cisco. We're all in trouple. Like everybody's going to see everything.
Internet.
Right, exactly. And we bring this up because it's interesting. I actually heard a lot this week from people interested in the security world and concerned, saying, are we in trouble at this point? Right? Is this a major deal? And honestly, if you dig into the exploit, yes, an unauthenticated user could run any script they wanted to as an administrator.
And wait a second. When you say run any script they want to, you mean connect to the router and upload some code and have that router execute that code.
Yes, which sounds scary. However, not on routers.
Oh.
It was Cisco puts out multiple products.
They do.
So this particular product was just around management of virtual networks. So there's a very sort of a management piece of software that gets installed. And where that software is installed, you could exploit that. But it's not like every router on the internet or every switch that's installed in a cabinet you could control and do, crazy things with. It was really kind of a smaller attack surface. But I think the name Cisco, unfortunately brings a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the news world of, oh my gosh, can we access everything and our hackers in there? Right. Right. So.
All right. So the takeaway for the Cisco thing is probably not going to affect your life one way or the other.
Nah.
And it was patched, of course, right?
Yes. Yeah, it was patched. And, and this is one of those things where we like to talk about this on this show because you may see the big scary headlines and think the whole world is falling apart in security. And really some of it's sensationalized, honestly.
I mean, that's it's the signal to noise ratio. That's the problem for everybody. It's one of the reasons why we decided to do this podcast is because most people see the headline and it's not the headline doesn't, and even the first paragraph doesn't tell you this isn't you. This doesn't affect you,
right?
Which is the first thing everybody wants to know. It's like, do I need to worry about this? If I turn on the news and it says forest fires sweeping the area, I want to know what area.
That's
is
important.
It my area? I mean, because it's happening all over the country, but it matters where it is. And so we need that. We need that context on these things. And that's what we're trying to provide.
Right.
Although we here at Security This Week have empathy with everybody who has forest fires.
Of course we do.
Yeah, I know. I was actually out in Arizona a few months ago, and a lot of places were closed. And we actually ate at a Denny's with the firefighters, the smoke jumpers were eating at, and it's scary stuff. A lot of people are facing it. But
yeah, Denny's is pretty scary all by itself.
I love Denny's. Oh,
Denny's, the official restaurant of Security This Week.
But it seems like we're getting hit by a lot more natural disasters. But there's also an uptick on all the cyber attacks. Every time I talk to somebody and they find out I'm in the business, they're like, well, when is this going to end? And I'm like, it isn't. Yeah. It's going to just keep intensifying and getting more and more incomprehensible. So that's why we're trying very hard to make it comprehensible.
Yes. As soon as that internet thing goes away, that knowledge stops.
The junk drawer of the internet is what we have to clean out.
Yeah. And, and it's a community junk drawer, apparently.
Oh my God. Could you imagine a junk drawer with all your siblings?
Or your neighbors or the entire world? Yeah.
Hey, has anybody seen my doohickey?
Why is there a leaf blower in here?
How many keys do we need?
I can't find a guitar pick.
Yeah, good times.
Why is there an urn with my old dog in here?
So, hey, did you guys see the whole AT&T thing this week?
Well, I did.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Alleged AT&T thing.
Yeah, I did. I use AT&T for my iPhone, so I was a little, my ears perked up a little bit. So what happened?
Well,
wait a minute. Let me take note of the fact that you use AT&T for future reference.
Yeah, that's one of my security questions at the bank.
And your mother's maiden name was?
I can't believe all these people are falling for these Facebook questionnaires where people are basically asking, for this kind of information.
Right. Your pet and your
favorite color, your cat's name.
Well, what you should do is just fill them all out and use as a location. Use Kathmandu.
Then you'll know.
So go ahead, Dwayne. Talk about AT&T.
According to a news article from Gizmodo, there is a notorious hacking gang, the Shiny Hunters, trying to sell 70 million subscribers worth of AT&T data on the dark web.
And when you say AT&T data, do you mean like who they called, when they called, like NSA kind of stuff?
A lot of this seems to be identifiable information. So account information, usernames, passwords, social security number, phone number, that sort of stuff.
Wow.
But there's a big but here.
But they, so interestingly enough, they've, I think they started, at, what was it, $200,000 to sell it. Me. And then I'm just going to go past it. And then they're increasing the bid by $30K every step, if I remember correctly. And at $1 million, they'll just instantly sell it to you right now.
Okay. So,
there's a problem with
this steal. I think that's what, 7 cents per person.
So apparently AT&T doesn't believe them, or they're just messing with them. What's going on with that?
AT&T is like, nah, you don't have it from us.
You don't have real data.
And and in a communication to Motherboard, they were like, no, we have it. Here's a sample. And they were like, you could have gotten that anywhere.
What's Motherboard?
It's just another website. We can put those in the links.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it's and it is interesting that now you can communicate back and forth with your hackers and claim the data is not real and have a dialogue, which is nice. You have an open dialogue. It's good.
So is that the Shaggy defense? Wasn't me.
Exactly. I think it was.
Say it, Pat.
Wasn't me.
That's it. That's the only line you know.
That's the only line I know. So what's possible? I mean, there's a lot of things that are possible. One is, what if the hacking gang just made up the data? Because it's not like, they have a support desk once they sell this stuff.
Yeah. They might get a better Business Bureau rating of bad, though.
The other thing I thought of is, what if it's a honeypot data? What if AT&T had a system out there that they used as a honeypot with fake data, and they got the fake data?
Right.
It would be a great way for, AT&T to become less of a target, because the hacker couldn't trust that they got the right data.
How big does a set of fake data have to be before there's some actual real data in it? Like the million monkeys kind of typing at typewriters. How long before they come up with War and Peace?
If you made up 70 million social security numbers, I guarantee that, 1 million of them are probably real social security numbers, if not more.
But they wouldn't be attached to the people's data.
They wouldn't match to the name.
Yeah.
And so in that case, it would be harmless. You couldn't open a bank account with that social security number because the name would be wrong.
But you could do some random testing on the data to see if those match up.
Yeah, they wouldn't. I mean, if you literally made them up, there's no way for you to.
Well, I get that, but I guess you could test to see if it was made up by checking the accuracy of a sample of data. Yeah.
Yeah, but you'd have to have a way to check the accuracy.
Right. Well, and then knowing where that came from. Right. I mean, literally, you could take breaches from all different types of companies, banks, hardware stores, whatever, put them all together, and it may look pretty legitimate. Maybe the first 100,000 are real data about real people, and the rest of it could be garbage.
I wonder how it would work if companies like AT&T said, "We've got a new breach disinformation program. We're gonna leak breaches from our company that are fake every week." And then if somebody claims one, they just don't release a fake one that week and let them think it's just it's the signal to noise ratio, right?
Yeah. So the government's been in the news, not just because of what's going on in Afghanistan, but in terms of information security and security hacking. And there's a couple stories that involve the U.S. government, right?
Yeah, and like the State Department needs more issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been kind of busy.
So
they got hit by a cyber attack.
According to Info Security Magazine, the U.S. State Department was hit by a cyber attack. And there's still a lot of research going on as to what this attack looked like and what type of data might or might not have been breached.
They don't know a lot, apparently. They don't even know when it was discovered. No. And oddly enough, the State Department is saying, you know what? We get attacks all the time. This is a normal thing. We don't think anything actually really happened. It's business as usual here. So all the things they're in the middle of, which if you guys look at the news, you probably see they're busy. Yeah, they're busy.
Things are still going according to them.
Right.
This hasn't affected anything.
Well, they're being as secretive as they should be, I guess.
Well, this could also be the source. It could just very well be that somebody had a conversation with a reporter and said, "Oh yeah, we had another cyber attack last week," and then it became news. And so now everybody's like, okay, well, which one are they talking about? People don't realize that attacks are ongoing all the time.
Right.
And they're thwarted a lot of the time, but there's still a cyber attack. So if you look at the title and the information we have, it could be that somebody tried to break into the State Department. Okay, that's what we call Thursday.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
That dovetails into the zero trust executive order.
Well, and that's a good point too. And I'm absolutely interested in your two views on this. But the executive order from our president is around, there's new orders around cybersecurity. And some people are saying, part of this potential breach is driving some of this as well. But it's zero trust, which is exactly as it sounds. Trust nothing, and only authorize things that you absolutely want to run. And then also endpoint detection and sharing of information. And this is, I think, the more interesting thing, because this is a new way of the government trying to work with not only all of its own departments, and because you have the NSA and you have the CIA and you have Department of Homeland Security, and all of them have their own cyber divisions and that sort of stuff. So, this mandate could help not only with those communications between those, but also with private sector security people, and sharing of information and logs and data and that sort of stuff.
I thought zero trust was just means security. I mean, what do you have? Half trust? 10% trust?
Zero trust is actual paradigm that based on a lot of factors. But
okay.
The short version is you stop doing things like single sign-on. You stop trusting people based on, you logged in today. So it must still be you who's asking for a dump of all the passwords.
All right. So you said single sign-on. That is what happens when you use Facebook or Google or something. And it seems like you never have to log in. You go a long time without being asked for your password.
Yeah. So I was doing I think I told you about this. Did I tell you about the spider bite and the kernel from
Yes.
DISA?
Yes. I think it was 2 episodes ago.
That's an example of zero trust. That basically the organization looks for multiple reasons to trust you instead of one reason to trust you.
Yeah. Okay.
It's multifactored. And multifactoring is part of it. Zero trust is a whole paradigm shift. We had a whole decade where we went to ease of use for the user, where we federated authentication with Facebook and Google and Active Directory. And, when you log in, you'll automatically be logged into Salesforce, and you'll automatically be able to get to the intranet, and you'll automatically be get to Salesforce. And that was convenience, but that's also very convenient for the hackers.
Yeah.
And so zero trust is highly, highly secure because it's highly, highly inconvenient.
So does that mean that our online lives as regular users of technology is going to get more inconvenient?
Strangely enough, online is a little less of a problem because you already authenticate pretty much for every transaction. Every time you log into a bank, they pretty much only let you talk to them for about 10 minutes before they log you off.
That's true.
And if you come back again in 10 minutes, they want to know who you are again.
Right.
They make you authenticate again. That's a zero trust model.
Yeah.
Now imagine that in your work office where you want to print and you need to authenticate to the printer every time you print. That gets old. And so there's a balance that has to be paid. And it's also, it's changing a direction. We spent more than a decade trying to make it more convenient for people to get access at their resources. And now we're going to make it less convenient because we don't want the bad guys piggybacking on them.
Well, the bad guys already know my favorite color and my cat's name and all that stuff because I answered that Facebook questionnaire.
That's right.
So they pretty much figured out all my passwords. I guess tongue in cheek here, does it mean that there's going to be more people now probably using services like LastPass and OnePass? So the authentication will happen, but it isn't going to inconvenience them in any way?
I think that depending on the implementation, that's possible. I think with more extreme or more vigorous implementations, it'll go beyond that. It'll be like multi-factor authentication multiple times a day.
Yeah.
So right now, the way multi-factor authentication works for most people is you do multi-factor authentication and then that device is trusted from then until forever.
Well, and I think it'll go deeper than that too, because the zero trust isn't just, okay, you're authenticated, go do whatever you want. right? It digs deeper into, okay, but the application that you're authenticated to use right now only prints. So it shouldn't go and open up a raw socket out to some AWS server and give access to somebody, right? Even though it's authenticated and you're okay.
Yeah.
And it should do it. So, as we start getting deeper and deeper down that zero trust rabbit hole, right? Your applications themselves, I think, and even the resources and protocols they use.
Role-based authentication.
Right. And only certain things are allowed by certain applications at certain times for certain users.
Yeah.
I actually like the idea that, when I log on to a website, it says, hey, look at your phone. And you look at your phone and it says, do you want to allow this? Yes or no. And when you press the button on your phone, then you're authenticated.
It's like magic.
It is like magic. Yeah.
Yeah. They're going away from that too, because the problem with that is the phone provider is now the missing link. If I can breach your phone provider to steal your phone number and your SIM, now I can be you.
Yeah. I don't know. I have a BM. I've bonded over that. I do, because it's funny. You read all these articles about people going, oh my gosh, don't use SMS for anything, right? Don't get text messages or install apps that are going to do, MFA on your phone because, hackers could just take your number. And you're like, okay, for somebody who's actually looked into how hard this is, it all comes down to if you can socially engineer AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile or something like that to say that you got a new phone and you need to transfer your phone number out to this new SIM, sure, that happens.
Right. So how far reaching is this mandate? I mean, is it anything that authenticates in the United States?
No. Right now, I think it's more the research and development phase. So what are the ramifications of doing this? Obviously the military is already using zero trust, but if you start looking at, what are we going to do in the future? Right, exactly. It'll take time before.
So it's a mandate, but it's not really a mandate. It sounds like.
Well, it's a mandate for the bureaucracy to start. So here's the thing: the military is there. The U.S. military is rapidly moving down this road and is already far down the road. It's very expensive. It's very inconvenient. You can order soldiers to do what they need to do. And the military has very good security in most regards. I know the headlines aside, for the most part, you're not getting onto the most secure networks of the military.
Okay.
Once they're secure, all the people they deal with need to be secure. So contractors, the State Department, the Commerce Department, I think it's the executive branch, because that's what an executive order's purview is over. They can't mandate it for my company or yours. Because there's cost aside.
But it's probably going to make its way into the major systems that people use hopefully over the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah. All right. And that brings us to our last story. Cybercriminal sells tool to hide malware in AMD and NVIDIA graphics processors.
Oh, this is the scariest one.
Yeah. So a GPU is what we're talking about. It's a graphics processor unit. It used to be that early computers had only one brain, the CPU, the central processing unit, that, processed instructions very quickly and all that. But it quickly became apparent that we needed to offload calculations that are done for graphics and math to a separate processing unit, and those were originally called math coprocessors.
Oh my God, the math co.
Yeah, the math coprocessors. And then when, graphics cards started getting really, really slick, they put a processing unit right on the graphics card itself, multiple processing units, and those are called GPUs. And computers nowadays can access those GPUs just like they can access the CPU, and programmers can run their code in the GPU. If you use something like Adobe Premiere or, something that does a lot of processing of data, you can turn on GPU processing so that rendering will go a lot faster, for example. So what's going on with hiding malware in these GPUs?
So interestingly enough, if anybody has ever, farmed a digital coin of any kind, that's kind of the same thing, right? You're leveraging this your GPU to go out and farm Ethereum or Raven or whatever coin you're trying to farm. So there's now according to the dark web, there's a for sale POC of someone creating malware that will now run in that same space.
Proof of concept POC?
Correct. Yeah. So
which is basically a little program that illustrates it.
Right. And for the most part, your antivirus and endpoint detection and anything that's looking for bad code is going to look for it in the main memory of the computer. And that could be the, memory at rest. So your hard drives, your NVMe drives or spinning drives or SSDs or whatever you have, or in the RAM. Right. But there's this whole other set of RAM, which is on your graphics card, and this whole other set of CPUs that's on your graphics card. So I think you're just seeing the evolution of malware writers going, hey, if everybody's looking at the main CPU and RAM, how about we move stuff around?
Well, in this particular case, they're trying to sell the technique that they say keeps malicious code safe from security solutions scanning the system RAM. So in other words, this is a technique to hide their viruses and all of that other stuff. Yeah.
Right. So it's interesting. I mean, it's always a cat and mouse game. We're always going to see, antivirus vendors and endpoint detection vendors,
right?
Follow these trends and see where malware is going and shift and start scanning new things. And maybe you'll start to see, Defender going, oh yeah, we're also protecting your GPU.
Yeah. Interesting. So the takeaway for us, do we have to worry about our graphics cards being exploited? How would that even happen?
Yeah. So currently, it seems like it's early days, right? But how it would happen is the same way you would get infected on your normal computer. It'd be an email that comes in and you click on something you thought you should click on and you probably shouldn't have.
Right.
And it'll run in the background and you'll never know it's there.
Right. Yep. We just took $5,000 from your bank account to pay for this new television. Click here to dispute the charge.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Anytime you need to unzip something with a password and then unzip it again to then view the invoice, you're probably in the wrong place.
Oh my gosh.
I would love to get to the point where people get out of the habit of clicking on anything or opening anything attached.
Yeah.
I have again, I don't know if I shared the story. I'm starting to get old. I repeat myself, but I got a call once from American Express and they left me a voicemail and told me to call a number because of a potential suspicious activity.
You did tell the story, but I want to hear it again.
So I looked at the back of my card and that wasn't the phone number on the back of my card. So I called the number on the back of my card and I reported that call as suspicious. And they said, well, we'll transfer you to security. And when I told them about it, the security department said, oh yeah, that was us. I'm like, why would you teach people to call a number that somebody just gave them over the thing? What if they socially engineered me to doing things? Oh, that's a good point. But I doubt they changed their practices. I want to get people out of the habit of clicking on a link that they get in an email. Instead, tell them to go log into their AT&T site, AT&T account.
Right.
At AT&T.com and then let them open a browser and type it in themselves.
Right.
It's so much more secure.
Yeah. Don't train them to do the wrong thing.
Right. We try that. It's hard because it's so easy to say, just click this link, but you really shouldn't. You should try to make it easy for them to open a browser, type in a short link, short URL and go to it.
Yeah.
And it should be something that they recognize and that they would know is the right address.
Yep.
It's hard to tell somebody to open a browser. I want you to type in, our website is Bob. So B, I want you to use the Russian Cyrillic O and then B.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, that's a show. It was a crazy week, but, I'm glad we walked through these things and there's more things that happened, of course, but, these were the big ones.
Ooh, and one update, Carl. I'm just seeing this come across my desk now. My editors come in.
This just off the wire.
Hello?
To all the ships at sea.
Chief, I thought I told you never to call me.
Hey, Scoop.
It's the shoe phone.
Jesus. The AT&T motherboard reference. It was actually a bleeping computer, not motherboard from Vice. Although Vice motherboard is a fantastic place to look for information. The AT&T hack information is from bleeping.
But you don't have to do all that. Just listen to Security This Week. All right. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
See you guys.
Hey, thanks for listening. You can find us on Twitter at SecurityThisWK and on Instagram at SecurityThisWeek. And we're also working on a Facebook page and a Patreon page. But of course, you can find all of these episodes wherever you get podcasts and at securitysthisweek.com.